Okay, so welcome again. My name is Heike Ritter and I will be your host for this webinar. Thanks for joining and thanks for being part of our community. A few reminders before we get started. So this webinar will be recorded and shared publicly afterwards on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. During the webinar, please feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on Ask a Question. Questions you post will be made publicly visible, and if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. And we are doing our best here in the backend to respond to all of your questions in real time. As you can imagine, we often get many questions, and if we can't get your questions answered in real time, or if you have questions after the webinar, or if you watch this as a recording, please don't hesitate to ask them on the Microsoft 365 Defender forum at aka.ms/m365dtc. And of course, we love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. So please do so at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. This is really important so we can deliver the content you're asking for and you need. And so if you haven't already, also please join our security community at aka.ms/security-community, as well as the Microsoft 365 Defender community at aka.ms/m365dtc. I posted all those links in the Q&A announcement area, so easy to click for you. And those communities are the best way for you to ensure that you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. And it's also a great way for you to directly engage with our engineering team that are building our security products. So today I'm excited that we can all learn about Microsoft Defender Application Guard for Office. And I'm handing over to you, Abi.
Yeah, thanks, Saiki, for this opportunity. And let me start by introducing the product team members who are with us here today. So I'm Abhijat, and I am a program manager in the Windows Platform Security team. And with me here is my buddy Sunny, who works with me, as well as we also have Angela from the Office security team. She also heads a PM in the Office security team. So we have put together this content which we'll go through quickly, and at a very high level, the agenda includes a small demo where we'll talk about the newly GA'd application guard for Office. It got GA'd earlier in this year, and then we'll talk about the technology which powers application guard for Office. And then we'll talk about what it takes to enable this technology and how seamlessly, what are the knobs, how you can enable it and secure your end users. And feel free to ask any questions in the chat. The product team will be happy to respond to those. So with that, let me start with a quick demo of Application Guard for Office. So in this demo, you would see how an Office attack plays out in an unprotected machine, which is not where the application guard is not enabled, and then how does application guard protect the end user from the attack. So the first machine is a user's is running his email, and this is the message which we are worried our users may get from an unknown sender, and usually it opens inside this protected view with this golden bar, and our users, before thinking twice, click on that edit button. Immediately, as you can see, there was a bad actor and all the files on the desktop got encrypted. There was a ransomware which was loaded in this document. Now, let's see how the same attack plays out in the machine which is protected by application guard. So same user, same mailbox, just that in this case, the whole experience of Office protected view is upgraded to application guard. So the user gets a document which is isolated inside Hyper-V based containers which are spanned by application guard. The bad guy is still playing out, but the bad guy is contained within the application guard container, the desktop files remains protected. In this case, the whole malware is isolated inside Hyper-V based container. So as you can see, this whole document is actually isolated, and you can see the crypto locker, the same malware, the bad guy is playing out. Now, not only we are able to isolate the bad guy, but in the same case, all the interaction the bad guy was doing inside the container were being recorded and are presented to the MD admin as a complete attack kill chain. It has your different IOAs, IOCs. It has your signatures of the malware. The security admin can see how the attack played out and all the binaries which were contained in the application guard, which gives him a peace of mind that the bad guy played out, but the whole attack was actually isolated inside application guard. You can get the signatures from it, and then you can reuse the signatures to block those binaries in the other places in your organization. You can search for them, hunt for them, which other mailboxes were targeted with this same email where this file was dropped. As you can see, there were 2 users who were also targeted in this org. And then you can take the remediation action right from your MD console to delete those or purge those emails. So what we saw here was that on our application guard protected machine, when the user opens the same attachment, that attachment was isolated inside the application guard boundaries, inside a Hyper-V based safe container. So the attack played out, but it could not infect the desktop. It was doing exactly the same thing it would have done on the user's desktop, but all those binaries, all those attack kill chain were isolated inside AppGuard. At the same time, application guard sensors which were running inside the container recorded everything what that malware was doing, and then presented that as an attack kill chain as after evidence of the attack, using which you can actually block the attack in the other places in your organization. With that, I will hand it over to Sunny, who's going to talk a little bit more about what this container is, what the technology which is being used for isolation using AppGuard. Sunny?
Thanks, Abhijat. So as you all could see on the screen that in the center of the screen is the device hardware. This could be your laptop, desktop, tablet. And on the right-hand side of the screen is the entire operating system itself, what we call as host. So this host operating system has its own kernel, Windows platform services, and applications like Office and Edge. As you had seen in the demo before, without application guard for Office, the host was impacted. Host is where most of your sensitive content, login credentials, like most of the things are within the host. On the left-hand side of the screen is the way how application guard containers work. What essentially application guard container is that it is a replica of the host operating system. It will have its own kernel, Windows platform services, as well as a replicated copy of both Office and Edge, and these 2 copies will always be in sync. So it wouldn't be like a host has a newer version of Office and the container has an older version. That won't happen. So to summarize again, there is this host operating system, and then application guard container is a parallel version of the host operating system. Now, anything that you execute within the container is confined within this container. You can also call it like a sandbox or a jailbox or a detonation box. If by any chance you encounter a malicious Office document, then if that document kind of opens within this container, and as you had seen in the demo before, the host operating system remains intact. Can we go to the next slide, please? So like we mentioned, we have application guard for Office, but this is a little segue, small segue into, hey, we not only have application guard for Office, but we also have application guard for Edge. Now, what happens in Application Guard for Edge is that the untrusted websites open inside the Application Guard for Edge container. But we also realize that Microsoft Edge is not the only browser that people use. There are other popular browsers like Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox. So what we have done is that for both of these third-party browsers, Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox, we have come up with extensions. What these extensions do is that, let's say you are visiting a trusted website within these third-party browsers, then fine, you will be able to access those trusted website within these third-party browsers. But let's say if you encounter an untrusted website, then what the user experience would be. Let's say you encounter an untrusted website, you enter the address in the address bar, you hit the enter button, and then as soon as you hit the enter button, it would spin up a instance of Microsoft Edge browser. Inside the container, you will still be able to access the untrusted website. So there would be a hop from the third-party web browser to the first-party web browser, Microsoft Edge. This might induce a little bit of user friction, but again, we do not want people to kind of, let's say they are using Google Chrome, then we do not want to stop them from accessing any third party, accessing any untrusted websites. So this is why we have come up with this middle ground that, hey, you will still be able to access it, but it will be through Microsoft Edge browser only. This feature is available for Windows 10 RS4 or later. Over to you, Abhijat, for the next slides.
Yeah, thanks, Sunny. So as Sunny mentioned, the technology exists in the core Windows platform starting version 18.03, and so far it has been used to isolate untrusted websites using Microsoft Edge browser. So Application Guard for Edge is already available for our enterprise customer as well as for our EDU and Windows 10 Pro customers. This is the same technology which has been now extended to isolate untrusted documents in Office, which we call Application Guard for Office. And let's see what the problem is here. And I think you saw the problem in the demo where in spite of having different email gateways and scans, the end user can be lured to click on that socially engineered email, and the attachment evades your email gateways and would still land into the user's inbox. And the user would open it. Like if it is targeted to 20 users, one of the user, it's a very good chance he may open it, and the attack could be a zero-day targeting some of any vulnerability in the platform or in the software itself. These attacks we have seen, more and more being increased. As you can see, there is a headline almost every other month where you would see some of these socially engineered attacks happening. Now we have something called Office Protected View, and you saw it kicked in beautifully the moment the user tried to open that untrusted document. And there are formulas already built in based on if this is an internally produced document within the organization, it's getting produced from a trusted tenant, then it will not open with a protected view. But if it is being sent from an outside, then or if it is being downloaded from the internet site, then that is flagged, and those markers are used to open the document inside Office Protected View. Now, inside Office Protected View, you can't print, you can't edit, and most of the time, you don't think twice when you click on that golden bar, that button which says Enable Editing. And after that, what happens is anybody's guess, as you saw in that attack. Right. So so after that, if there is a malware, then it will play out. It will evade the user mode sandbox, which Office Protected View deploys, and that's the issue here. So the idea is to, like, as an Office Protected View was built on the same philosophy to isolate the untrusted code, right? So restrict the usage, but at the same time, it restricts the productivity of the end user also. So that's why Application Guard was created, where it's an upgrade over the Office Protected View. As you can see, there is no golden bar, there is no edit button, there is no choice which is being offered to the end user here to click or not. So it's a seamless upgrade over the user's productivity, where if a document is open inside Application Guard container, then the user can edit the document, user can print the document, and he can actually do most of the normal functions you would like to do on a document while still being isolated with the Application Guard containers security boundary. The main difference here being the type of the sandbox which is used by the Application Guard. In this case, it leverages the Hyper-V based capabilities which are built in the Windows platform, and uses that to isolate the untrusted code. So as you saw in the demo, the number one advantage of using AppGuard is that it gives you that enhanced security without giving you a choice to choose between productivity or security, right? So the productivity comes built in because inside the Application Guard container, the user can do all the normal functions. It isolates any zero-day exploits because the Hyper-V based container boundary is actually a security boundary which we defend, and it has not been escaped so far. So that's why it escapes all the user mode or even the kernel mode 0 days exploits. So it's a much stronger security promise which comes with Application Guard. Like I said, it's an improved user experience. Users don't have to even choose between productivity or security. Out of the box, it gives you almost full experience of interacting with the Office document, what you would do, the normal functions like editing, printing, you should be able to do. Further, you can restrict or ease certain functionality like the clipboard functionality. What do you want to copy and paste from the container to the outside on your desktop? And you can further fine tune those capabilities, which we'll talk about in a second. And thirdly, the most important thing is the overall M365 value which it gives to you by means of integrating with other M365 technologies like the one which you saw, where it integrates with MDE. On one end, it protects the 0 days, it isolates the attack. On the other end, it gives you complete insight into those IOAs, IOCs, the end-to-end attack kill chain. It gives you those artifacts of the attack which you can later on use to block the attack in your organization, to get more insights into what is going on, who's targeting the hashes, the CNC IPs and whatnot. It gives you all those artifacts. It also integrates with the other Defender technologies like Defender SafeTalks. So, and that is something like if your user still wants to run that document outside of the Application Guard container, then there are some capabilities, some checks present via Office SafeTalks, where if you want to escape it out of the container, run it normally on your desktop for information reuse and any other scenario you may have, then you can do it, or you can disallow your users from doing it. But if the user tries to do it, then it will still be checked against the Office SafeTalks. And if it is deemed safe, then only it will be allowed to run on the desktop. So that overall enhanced Microsoft 365 value, it gives you by virtue of integrating with these other technologies. Yes, so now let's talk about what does it take to enable Application Guard in your organization. And then we understand one size doesn't fit all, and I talked about it a little bit. There are certain knobs through which you can further fine tune the experience which you want to give to your end users. So on the platform side, there is only one policy, there is only one knob to enable Application Guard system capabilities. So this you will do on your Windows devices, Windows-based devices. So there is only one now. And then there are a set of Office policies, and as you can see, the blue values here are the defaults, which we have fine-tuned to give the best experience to our customers. But you can further fine-tune for which users you want to enable application guard. And like I said, it's an upgrade over protected view. So if you don't enable application guard in the Office setting for certain set of users, they'll continue opening the document in protected view. For the users for whom you enable application guard, they would not see protected view, but they'll seamlessly get upgraded to the application guard experience. Same set of files, it's just that they would not open with that golden bar, but they will open inside application guard container. Then you can further fine tune the printers. So which kind of printers do you want to allow printing from the application guard? Like, do you want to only allow PDF-based printing, local printing, network printing, things like that? Do you want to give them the file trusting options, which is what I was talking about? So if the user wants to run the document on the desktop, then the safe docs is going to check the document, but you can completely restrict your users from not even allowing to escape the documents and allow them to run on the desktop. You can completely take away that capability. And then the copy paste type, the clipboard controls. Do you want to allow copy paste between container and the desktop, between the application guard untrusted document and the desktop or not? So you, and as well as the camera microphone location. Do you want to turn it off from any content which is running inside application guard? You can further fine tune those things. What are the system requirements? Now let's talk about that. So we have talked about the capabilities. We have talked about the different configurations. Now let's talk about what do you need to run application guard. What's the minimum system requirements? What are the software requirement? What are the platform requirements? So application guard container is a Hyper-V based container. So what does that means is it uses the virtualization technology, which is provided via means of the CPU extensions. We are talking about Intel VT, AMD V, likes of those. And this technology is pretty standard in processors. If you have bought a machine in last 5 to 7 years, this technology is pretty standard. We are talking about Intel i3, i5, i7, that grade of microprocessors, which are pretty standard nowadays. We need at least 4 cores, physical or virtual, to be enabled. And we require minimum of 8 gig of RAM and a hard disk capability of at least 10 gig so that you can enable the application guard functionality in the platform. Now, the software requirements as well as the licensing requirements for application guard for Edge and application guard for Office differ a little bit. As Sunny mentioned, application guard for Edge, it has been available since version 1803 professional and 1709 for enterprise or higher. It's been available for a while now, so that's the minimum Windows release on which you can enable application guard for Office. Whereas for application guard for Edge, but for application guard for Office, you would specifically need Windows 10 Enterprise Edition, the client build version 2004, which we also call 20H1, which was released in the summer of last year. You would need at least that build or above to enable application guard for Office. Now, the licensing differ a little bit. The application guard for Edge is available for the E3 customers, but application guard for Office is exclusively available for M365 E5 and M365 E5 security licensing SKUs. And that's the main thing to note here. And there's a reason for that, as you saw in the demo as well as in the previous slides. It unlocks a very good value with those enhanced features and integration points with the other M365 E5 products end to end, and that's why it's been kept into this queue. And with that, we arrive at the summary of this webinar. So what we have seen here is the new capability from M365 called Application Guard for Office, which unlocks new security and productivity value for protecting the user. It's a seamless experience, and it's actually an upgrade over Office Protected View. So the same set of files which used to be open in the Office Protected View will now open in Application Guard for Office. By all means, it enhances security. It provides enhanced security to your end users for their desktops, as well as it provides out of the box editing, printing, all the common functions which a user may want to do on a document. So it's an upgrade over productivity. Together with the integration points with the other MD products like Save Docs and Defender ATP, it unlocks a much broader security value for the users and for your security admin. And like I said, Application Guard for Office is generally available now. We GA'd earlier in the year in January. And the public documentation is easily available. Like if you search for Application Guard for Office, you will hit it as a very first search result. With that, we are almost at the end of this presentation, and I can see a few questions which are there in the chat. Maybe we can go through some of those and talk about those. Heike, is that okay?
Of course, absolutely. Please discuss a few of those great questions.
Yeah. So I think I can see one question here, which is about difference with Defender for Office 365, which also scans the attachments. And I think Angela has responded. Angela, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
No, unless there are any questions, I think I answered it in the chat.
Great. Yeah, I think it checks for the APIs, so you have lookups, whereas the App Guard for Office isolates it on the endpoint, and I think that's the primary difference.
I think it's, I mean, Microsoft Defender for Office 365 is a very different technology and a very different product that does more than just, like, the question was very related to, hey, what's the difference? Because Defender for Office 365 is scanning the attachments as well. So it does not just scan the attachments. So it's a post-breach plus pre-breach solution altogether that gives you a lot of more security protection for your apps and data, emails and data. With like investigation experience and all kind of things. And Application Guard for Office sits on the endpoint and isolates Office documents in this moment from your OS in case there's a threat happening, like bad guy in your document, like a VBS script and stuff, trying to do something harmful. Like it's an additional product, and it shouldn't be seen as which one should I use. It's two different things, and you should look closer into both of them. Yeah, makes sense.
Thanks, Heike. Yeah, that's good. So let me start from the bottom. The latest question there is on Application Guard licensing. And Application Guard for Office, you need Microsoft 365 E5 or E5 security. What license is needed for Application Guard for Edge? So yeah, Sunny has responded. Application Guard for Edge requires minimum E3 license, which means you can enable it using Windows Enterprise SKU. Windows 10 Pro as well as EDU can also be used to enable Application Guard for Edge, but the capabilities are slightly different. With the Windows Enterprise, you can do site management, you can manage a couple of other settings, but with the Windows 10 Pro, you cannot do that. You can only use the standalone mode for Application Guard for Edge, which is basically nothing but you click on the three dots on the top right, and it opens very similar to in private window. There is a question on performance. So any delay in opening files in AppGuard? Yeah, so like we mentioned, application guard uses Hyper-V to create Hyper-V based extremely lightweight micro VMs. By all means, they are virtual machines. And that's why we have a system requirement for running application guard for enabling the technology in the platform. And we ask for minimum 8 gig of RAM so that the end user does not see any significant performance impact. Now, there are certain details which I would want to answer through this question, which is if you look at an enterprise grade machine, typical workload in a day of an information worker would be a couple of browser tabs open, Microsoft Outlook running, couple of documents open. Typically, it consumes about 3.5 to 4 gig of memory. And then you would need, yes, for running application guard containers, micro virtual machine, you would need some memory of about 600 MBs to be available. Now, with that average workload in an enterprise, that's why we ask for 8 gig of minimum memory, because we have run those data analysis and worked with our customers to see that within that range, the performance impacts are absolutely zero or minimum, because there is a working set which is available for running these containers for a typical information worker in an enterprise after running those workloads on their system. So yeah, there is, but then the system requirement should take care of it. And that's why, though technically AppGuard can be enabled on a 4 gig machine also, but we don't recommend, we disallow it through internal settings because it won't be a good experience. The other question is, can you deploy application guard on a computer that's Hyper-V installed? Yes, totally. In fact, you don't have to necessarily enable Hyper-V for running application guard. When you choose to enable application guard from the platform settings, internally it utilizes Hyper-V, but you don't have to explicitly enable Hyper-V. Let's see, what are the other questions here? Webinars.
Yeah, all my announcements
Yeah.
that I made. I think all the questions have been answered. I don't see any
Great.
other question that we actually need to discuss further, unless you see something where you want to add additional context. I don't know, Sunny, did you see any questions that you think might be worth discussing a little bit further, or are we good?
I think we should be good.
Cool. So I think I see the summary slide. So this is where people can find additional information. There is a lot of public documentation out there. The slides, of course, will be shared, so the links will be clickable. And yeah, so I think, Abhi, with that, I can start closing the call if you would give me my slide.
All yours.
Wonderful. So, of course, Abhi and Sunny, thank you so much. Some reminders before ending the call. Recording slides will be made available, aka.ms/security webinars. We have a few more webinars that I would like to announce coming up. August 17, we are talking about Microsoft Cloud App Security, about how to protect your Slack deployment using Microsoft Cloud App Security. We have our monthly threat insights, where we are discussing a threat with our threat intelligence team. August 18 and September 15 are the next ones. All of those details and registration are for you on aka.ms/security webinars. If we missed to answer your question, or if you have additional questions or are listening into this after the fact, please go to the Microsoft 365 Defender forum at aka.ms/m365dtc. And again, thank you, Abhi and Sunny, for today's webinar. Thank you to the rest of the team who helped answering the questions. And most of all, I want to thank all of you for being part of our community, joining us on those webinars, asking questions, and I hope that we will all see you next time. Goodbye.